Okay, thank you everyone. Good morning. My name is Nancy Hirsch, Executive Director of the Coalition. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully everyone has a program. If you don't, we have them out front. In that program are all the speaker and moderator bios. And a thank you to our membership also in here. I'd like to acknowledge today that we are meeting on the traditional territories of the Salish, Kootenai, and Kalispel peoples. And I'd also want to highlight the work of the Northwest Energy Coalition to echo and follow the work of our tribal allies on energy issues that support salmon recovery, holding the Bonneville Power Administration accountable for its actions in the region, clean energy development, and utility regulatory issues. We are always educating ourselves and our members and listening to understand the experiences of and the injustices perpetrated on Indigenous peoples of this land and throughout the Northwest. We are working towards greater justice, and our advocacy work and our learning is all a part of that process. I hope you'll take some time today to share with your colleagues here your work in calling out injustices and working for equity. Hosting educational forums is really foundational to what the coalition is and how we operate. And having a diverse membership and working with allies across a lot of different sectors helps us to be better informed, to learn from each other, to question, to listen, to engage. All of that is really central to who we are as an organization and bringing folks together. So thank you for joining us today. And our next in-person conference is going to be December 2nd and 3rd in Portland, Oregon. So we hope you'll make that journey to Portland and continue to engage across the region on these important issues. I want to thank our sponsors, Puget Sound Energy, the Montana Environmental Information Center, and Renewable Northwest. Really important to have your support. We really appreciate it. I also want to note that this presentation is being recorded by the Missoula Community Access Television as part of the Media Assistance Grant donated to the Coalition by MCAT. So thank you, MCAT, for being here and for recording this. I want to thank Kat Plimpton, our organizer, our operations and outreach director over there in the purple hair, for helping organize this, and for Beth Brooks, our development director, for also jumping in when we were shorthanded to pull the event together. Really important support in making this happen. You also, when you came in, should have gotten an evaluation form. Please keep that at the ready. Your feedback helps us make these forums responsive to what is of interest to you and how you want to see them structured. Today we have a really interesting set of panels and opportunity for discussion. Thank you to our speakers for being here and for engaging and sharing your knowledge. The focus on tribal energy project development, the role of new transmission and its impact on resilience and reliability, and the opportunities for bringing energy and housing together and what we can learn from the experiences happening here in this region are going to be some of the information we're going to share. And then we're going to mix it up a little bit, and we're going to have what we call tabletop discussions, where we can talk amongst ourselves at our table in a facilitated conversation about resilience and what that looks like in the work that you're doing, so we can learn from each other and engage in conversation. So thank you all for participating in that part as well. Now, I am delighted to introduce Jim Morton, and Northwest Energy Coalition founder and a national leader in community energy assistance work with the Human Resource Council District 11. And a personal hero and mentor of mine since I joined the coalition in 1996. So Jim, it is a delight to have you introduce Mayor Davis.
Well, good morning. It's great to see such a great crowd. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Andrea Davis, and I'm going to talk about what I know about her in terms of housing. She's very transparent with her bio, especially as an elected official. You can do some of your own sleuthing. But her housing work for the last, I'll say, 20 years, I won't go any further than that because, you know, that would be probably not good in terms of all that she's done. But why housing, I think, is important for what all of us do in terms of the land, the Mother Earth, and how we respect it. If you're going to build housing, you're going to create a structure that's going to be around for decades. And what Andrea has done in those decades with her team is when you start out building a project, you go talk to people about that project. So it gives you a discussion about affordable housing. But what she has done, which aligns with what we do, is not only to do that, but talk about what happens when you heat and cool that structure that she's going to build. She wants the occupant to understand that perhaps how we generate electricity is important, how we use solar is important. So it gives what she's been doing for a long time is that education component, which aligns with what a lot of us are doing. The other thing that you will find with Andrea is that as we discuss building things, what kind of materials do we use? How do we use what we have efficiently? What are the new products? So she's been on the forefront of convincing local code officials about new products. What are their engineering standards? Can she use those? And she has moved forward that aspect of housing. The other thing that she has done that is impressive, and she works throughout the state, not just here in Missoula. But if she's been asked to come into community and remodel a structure, let's say a hospital, she has the education component again to say, there's carbon here. It's already here. We're not going to tear it down. We're going to use what we have because taking from our earth for new materials that we have already makes no sense. So that's part of what she's done for a long time. And the other component is she has to convince funders that if it costs more, that what they're using to evaluate what she's doing perhaps needs another look, because what we invest now will pay off on the long term, and she's been on the forefront of that, which, you know, helps us all. And the other thing, just personally, we might be competing for the same funding. She's been out there explaining why she might have a project that costs more than somebody else because of what she does about integrating the materials and the people. But she would be right there to congratulate me if I am awarded a grant to build housing. She's as excited for me as she would be for her own project because she understands this is not a zero-sum game. There are not necessarily winners and losers. As we each add one step at a time, that's what her goal has been, and I've seen that over these years. So I just think that that component of her many accomplishments will help us to look at what she's going to be discussing and her as a colleague, because she's been right there step by step with many of us. So with that, it's my great pleasure, the only second woman in the history of Missoula to be the mayor.
Wow, what an honor it is to be with you all today. And I want to thank the organizers and the hosts to have actual glasses for our water and eliminating the use of single-use plastic. So right on, right. So let me just take a quick sip of this clean Missoula water. Jim, Thank you. It's incredible to, and I'm honored. I'm not sure how this actually works, but I might sit here and just play with this for a second to see if I can get this so I can see most of you. I'm really honored to be with you today, and thank you so much for the incredible welcome. It's truly an opportunity to welcome all of you to beautiful Missoula. And you can see that where we are today, we are surrounded by natural beauty in the place that we call home. And we're reminded deeply of the deep connection to the land, to the water, to the sky that sustain us here in this part of the world and all of the world. We're humbled and grateful to call Missoula home. And as Missoulians, we're fortunate to live in one of the most beautiful places, from the Clark Fork River that flows through the valley and down south to the Bitterroot Mountains, right out our door here, Mount Sentinel, and the wildflowers that are popping open right now with the amazing sunshine that we're all experiencing today. And with that beauty and with that privilege comes a great responsibility. So in Missoula, and I'm so thrilled as the mayor to welcome the Northwest Energy Coalition's 2025 Spring Clean and Affordable Energy Conference. Jim and I, as you heard, have been longtime colleagues, and I have been so incredibly impressed by the level of leadership that Jim has demonstrated for decades in this space. As somebody deeply committed to true affordability for folks that are living with limited means, having the opportunity to take the leadership and knowledge that he has to apply it to some of the most root causes of affordability, which is, of course, energy and its connection to our earth. Jim's been a true mentor of mine over the years, and the work we've done at the statewide level has been, and here in Missoula, has just been a true honor, and I'm so pleased to be able to be in the space together today. So the conversation and the gathering that you're having today is more important than ever, especially as we face the incredible turn of the tides, or maybe we should say a real thrust and push against clean energy, in particular from the federal government at this time. And so to keep the momentum going, to keep this conversation going, and to keep the energy going forward is more important than ever. We have the momentum, you have the momentum to keep clean and affordable energy going, and so we must continue. I want to give some highlights about what the city of Missoula has done in this space and what we continue to do. Back in 2014, Missoula's elected leaders made a bold commitment. We made a commitment to make city operations carbon neutral by 2025. And we have made great strides towards that goal. We have completed an energy audit of our municipal buildings, and we have launched 58 energy-saving projects across 13 facilities, including LED lighting, heating, ventilation, and air cooling upgrades, solar panels, and water conservation. We have installed a solar array at our wastewater treatment plant, reducing emissions and saving taxpayer dollars. By doing the audit, we recognized that that was actually where we spend the majority of our energy consumption, is at our wastewater treatment plant. And so we have the land there, we have the opportunity to put a large solar array there, and so we are thereby reducing our carbon consumption and our carbon footprint and saving dollars at the same time. And I think that, of course, looking across this room, that is the message that we want to get out there and try to hold up, because that is a win-win for us all. Our city are now driving electric vehicles from our Parks Department to our Planning Department, and we are pulling a working group together to basically prioritize our work, given the shifts that are happening at the federal level. Some of the funding that we had aimed to continue to apply to this work, we need to make sure that we can continue this if resources change. But we're not stopping there. We pledged to power Missoula with 100% clean electricity by 2030. And that's why we have partnered with Missoula County, the City of Bozeman, and Northwestern Energy, to create the Green Power Program. And this is a new way for homes and businesses to access renewable energy. In 2024, we finalized a key agreement, and we are now working towards the full program development. What this will look like is a new 50 megawatt power plant that is powered with renewable sources. Either we're anticipating solar or wind, and that means that you and I will be able to purchase clean energy from this facility. We are also looking to a future with the goal of our community-wide carbon neutrality plan in place by 2050. That means rethinking how we heat and cool our homes, how we travel, and how we build our neighborhoods. We've launched an electric vehicle infrastructure plan, appliance rebate programs, and Electrify Missoula campaign with our partners to help residents shift to clean energy. We've also embedded climate goals with our own land use plan and are aligning our zoning code to match. And because climate resilience is essential in a place like Missoula, we worked to release our Climate Ready Missoula plan with our partners, a community-driven plan to prepare for wildfire smoke, extreme heat, and other climate risks. We partnered to help launch the Stay Cool Missoula Toolkit and integrated climate resilience into the majority of our major city plans, like our current plan right now, which is our Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan for our parks and open space. This progress is thanks to our climate sustainability team at the City of Missoula, our city departments, and then the powerful partnerships that we have built, some of which are here today. This is where we're just getting started. Looking back, in 2015, we adopted the Missoula Community Climate Smart Action Plan, a visionary roadmap to a carbon-neutral future. And because climate change is no longer a distant threat, or is it theoretical? It's here. But so is our opportunity to act, to create green jobs, build resilient communities, and ensure everyone has a voice. Jim talked a bit about my 2-decade-plus long career building homes that Montanans can afford, and the organization that I was most recently the executive director of for 15 years, we focused on sustainable development. And we did that because the nexus between affordable homes and sustainable living and clean energy and the way we build our built environment, there is a very strong nexus there. We built homes with a smaller envelope, mostly because we were building multi-home structures, flats, apartments, or we did have an opportunity to build some single dwelling homes, and we did so on a land trust. We were actually the first land trust here in Missoula on a ground lease, and we experimented with some straw bale homes. And so I know that you'll have a panel later where you'll be able to talk about opportunities for different kinds of building types and structures that utilize, if it's new materials, utilizing materials that are grown and built in a sustainable way, are repurposed, and or repurposing our buildings so we can continue to utilize the structures that have already been built and see them for a new day. We built in places that were adjacent to public transportation, and we helped further the mobility opportunities. So we would build properties where we could then extend sidewalks or trail systems. And so it's so interesting for me to be the mayor and having built these homes and partnering with organizations like the Missoula Redevelopment Agency on ways that we could expand the trail system. And now I'm the mayor and get to see how we can continue to further these goals with so many more partners in the community. So smart land use and building planning is the most foundational and significant thing that we can do at the city. And as you know, likely, but the city is underway right now with the overhaul of our land use planning. So the city council just adopted our new land use map in December. And now the city staff are underway working with our consultants to produce new development codes. And what that means is that we are creating opportunities for folks to build homes on smaller lots, smaller homes on smaller lots. And, hearkening back to the work I did for all these years, the reality is that when you have a smaller home that is well built, that you're concentrating on the envelope, and that also can be powered by clean energy like solar, you have the opportunity to reduce people's cost of utilities significantly. We built this property in Missoula called Solstice and Equinox some years ago, and it's on the river. It was an old bowling alley, so we repurposed that, the building materials there, and reutilized all the asphalt on site to help bring it out of the floodplain. So there's a number of sustainability moves that we did, but we asked the residents there to report what their energy consumption was. Because we built with a tight envelope, made sure the building breathed, and we were able to offset at least the community energy consumption with solar. And folks were reporting that their average apartment energy consumption was about $30. And $35. Now, this was back when we did 2015, and obviously it would be higher now. But that is really significant to understand that, and we all know that the cheapest energy is the energy we don't consume, and this enables, ideally, the entire system to be more resilient. So as I said, the city is now underway with the overhaul of our new land use map and our zoning code rewrite. And not only does this allow for new development opportunities for smaller and more energy-efficient homes, which ideally will be more inexpensive to either rent or to buy, but we also are addressing the way our street typology works and the way that we are able to ensure that more street trees can be built so we can actually have naturally cooling opportunities within our community and the connection to nature in a city that is growing, that will have more dense build out. And so how is it that we make sure that we can still connect with green space and nature while we are actually building up rather than building out? We're hoping that we'll be able to see it easier for structures to be built where there'll be for example, 4 families living where once there was only 1. The other opportunity that this allows us is this allows us to be able to create a more interconnected system of trails, walking paths, sidewalks, and our electric bus system. Amy Sillenberg is here with Climate Smart Missoula, and she and I served on Mountain Line, which is our local transit agency, for many years. And we set the goal for 0 tailpipe emissions by 2035. And at the time, everybody thought this is this is going to be impossible to reach this because where are the resources going to come? But with that vision came funding from the federal government, and more than 50% of Mountain Line's buses are tailpipe-free emissions today. And so the way that we address our land use plan and our code, if we can get more homes that are able to actually utilize our electric bus system, people will have options. We are saying you'll have options to walk, you'll have options to bike, you'll have options to take the electric bus, or you'll have an option to drive if that's your preference. And we are reducing people's cost of living and addressing our carbon footprint at the same time. So we're looking to the future on a few more things. There was some recently passed legislation, Senate Bill 188, which is to create a community solar. And the city is looking to catalyze this on a number of ways. This opportunity is something that will allow households and small businesses to subscribe to shares in community solar generation projects. And it is a game-changing opportunity in Montana where electricity rates are increasing and the potential for renewables abounds. I mean, just look outside today. This enabling legislation will allow the benefits of solar to be more available to people and companies who otherwise might face financial or logistical barriers to investing in their own solar array. As Jim mentioned and I talked about, we did some projects years ago where, again, at home where we were able to bring in solar, we had to raise the capital to do that. And we were able to do so through financing and grant sources and a number of other things. But low and moderate income households don't always have that option, obviously. And a lot of small businesses don't have that option. So how can we do this in community in ways to make it more accessible? We want to be able to leverage existing programs in our city departments, and when the city is well positioned to do that because we have city specialists already dedicated to renewable energy. They're attending today. Hi, Evora. Good to see you. Focused on electrification and affordable housing. And we will continue to apply their expertise and connections towards utilization of this new tool. Now, this new tool will take some time to roll out. The legislation does require that our Public Service Commission spend some time putting rules behind this. And we want to make sure that we are elevating awareness and we are elevating excitement about this so we can actually see this program hit the ground running hard when the opportunity hits. So we'll continue at the city to utilize entities like Missoula Economic Partnership, which is it's a membership organization that the city helps support with other businesses that helps develop economic opportunities. And we see that the clean energy opportunity in Missoula is one that we want to be able to catalyze. We'll continue to facilitate partnerships and coordinate program and project development using our existing staff members, our planning department, our redevelopment agency to advance clean energy and affordable housing goals. We can take a look at what city land can be utilized for community solar projects, for example. We'll continue to work with our colleagues and partners in and around the state and share lessons learned around the best practices for implementing community solar. I think that's one of the best things that we can do as we try on new things is what worked, what didn't, and what do we need to do differently in order to make sure that this can continue into the future. I think that we're close to the end of my remarks, and so I wanted to go on to say that the city is going to be continuing to work in this space and promoting the kinds of resources that we can continue to move forward, despite maybe possibly having to adjust and pivot with what we thought might be some available resources from the federal level. But like I just said, this legislation was just passed, and we're going to continue to work with our community partners to raise the excitement and the elevation around ways that we can continue to catalyze the sun, for example. I was sparked with an idea the other day around how we can do a solar for all, a solar blitz for all opportunity where the city and the county and the community partners to continue to raise excitement and elevate and interest around accessing solar and the eventuality of this program so people can understand how we can use our built environment to host these community solar options. The city, I just said, is we're underway right now with the work of our development code. And so we are trying to figure out ways that we can make sure that our development code supports these kinds of innovations, that we can support electric vehicle charging stations, for example. You know, when you sit down and think about it, well, if you're gonna build a fourplex or if you're gonna build a multifamily apartment building, how do you get the electrical cord to the electric vehicles? And, you know, it's one thing when you have 4 vehicles that pull up to the curb, but what if you want to have more vehicles access that? Are you going to stretch a cord over the sidewalk? These are the fun things that we get to think about at the city, but we have to continue to think about ways that we are getting, that we're actually able to make sure that we create the infrastructure available for people to utilize this kind of technology in ways that is readily accessible to us. And we need to make sure that we continue to not be a barrier at the city by creating regulations that make it costly or impossible to achieve this together. So I just want to conclude by saying that it's so incredibly valuable to have you here. Thank you for continuing the work that you do to help push us all forward. I'm excited to learn about what comes out from this conversation. I saw the 3 breakout sessions, and I feel like there is just so much that we can learn and work on together as we move forward. There's a lot that I didn't cover today in terms of specifics of what we're working on, but the city of Missoula is dedicated to this work. We're dedicated to learning from you and learning together, and we're dedicated to continuing to make our residents and help our residents access clean and affordable energy going into the future. So thank you so much for your commitment to that work, and I look forward to the conversation. Thank you. Thanks. I want to finish that.
Thank you again, Mayor Davis. Another round of applause. You know, that was a great framing for our whole day and for digging deeper into the panels and then the tabletop discussion. And Missoula is clearly a model for local government. So we will all take those lessons learned and the actions that Missoula is doing back to our communities to spread the word. And I would like to invite Gerald and Patrick. Where is Patrick? I don't see him yet. All right, well, Gerald, we're doing it ourselves. Our first panel will discuss the opportunities for tribal energy sovereignty and the lessons learned in developing tribal clean energy projects and how we can work together and support tribal communities more effectively. So we were not, James Paddlety with the Nez Perce and Nimipu Energy was going to join us, but he was called away and is not able to join us today. And I expect Patrick to come hopefully soon. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to the conversation with Gerald. So let's thank you, Gerald Wagner with Blackfeet Nation. Please join us. So before we start, I just want to note that, is this on? Yes. Gerald's bio is in your program. I will not do a deep read of that because you can read it yourself. I want to save more time for the conversation. And I have had the pleasure of working with the staff and tribal members with the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission, affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, and the staff of many lower Columbia River tribes on salmon recovery, energy sovereignty, and energy replacement efforts around changes to the federal hydro system to address needs of salmon. It's been very fulfilling work, and many tribes in the Northwest are working to support renewable energy, energy storage, promoting energy efficiency within their communities and on their ceded lands, and looking for co-development and ownership opportunities with new projects and expanding energy efficiency programs and finding new partners to look for more affordable housing. And we're very excited to have Gerald, who is the director of the environmental office with the Blackfeet Nation, here with us, and have a conversation about how projects are developed, what the goals are for tribal communities or his community, and lessons learned that we can share. So we're going to walk through some questions, but we're going to invite you into the conversation to ask us questions, share your stories as we engage, so that it is a conversation. So, thank you, Gerald.
Okay, Niskani. Welcome, my friends. My name is Makoe Apapum, which means lightning wolf. My given name is Gerald Wagner. It's an honor to be here with you this morning to speak and for me to share some information on what the Blackfeet Nation is doing in terms of renewable energy efficiency. I was invited, thinking, oh no, how did they hear about me? But I think I've been out there for 33 years, so I do have a little bit of a reputation out there. So I'm just thankful that I was given this opportunity. Again, I'd like to thank the ancestral peoples of the area for whose land we are on now, the Salish and Kootenai, Pend Oreille, and believe it or not, the Blackfeet have come this far and also had some rights down here. I am the director of the Blackfeet Nation's environmental program. I have been in my role in June will be 33 years. My first year and a half, I was the wetlands program specialist, and after that, I was asked to act as the director, and I've had 5 Oscars and 3 Tonys and Grammys, and been there ever since. But I take my job pretty seriously. I try to share what leadership skills I have, how the foundation to any successful program is accountability and good management. And once you have them in place, the staffing behind it will follow. They will follow a good leader. Bad employees won't work for a good leader. So that got that out the way as soon as I came in and laid some ground rules. I have also sit on what we call the Regional Tribal 8 Environmental Committee, and that is Region 8 is North and South Dakota, Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. And with that, the 28 tribes all have seats at the table where we take our individual tribal environmental concerns and discuss them on a regional basis, and hopefully are able to elevate them to the regional administrators' awareness so that we can come up with some solutions. Out of the 10 regions here in the United States, we are given 20 representatives to meet back in Washington, D.C. with the administrator of EPA. Montana, Region 8, not Montana, but Region 8 gets 3 representatives. One for Colorado and Wyoming, Utah. One represents North and South Dakota, and one represents the tribes of Montana. I have held that position for 25 years. And so back in D.C., I have sat as the chair and the vice chair of the National Tribal Environmental Committee. I've sat with many EPA administrators, starting with Carol Browner back under the Clinton administration, and the numerous administrators through the Democrat, Republican, Democrat contingencies there. So I've been at it, and so I've come to learn throughout the time how it works. I just wish I came in the door knowing how it works. It's kind of 20 years, 25 years later understanding that and saying, oh, I got it now. But my job is to share that knowledge with the people coming up so that they get it sooner than I got it. But I am not gone yet. I'm still here. The Energizer Bunny still has some energy here. I wasn't expecting to have the whole show here, but I will go ahead and jump in. And there was some questions put forth, and I'll go ahead and
All right.
rescued here.
All right.
I was getting parched.
Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Sorry
How's it going,
for
Patrick?
the inconvenience.
No
I
problem.
went to the Gallagher building on accident.
All right.
They're having a retirement party on the 3rd floor there. So. Appreciate being here.
Patrick Wawaki is a state lobbyist with tribal organizations as well as the Blackfeet, and he has a company called Red Medicine LLC, and we're very delighted to have you join us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, little bit of background, a little bit further background. Been working for the Blackfeet tribe essentially for the past 3 legislative sessions since 2021, but I also have been picked up of a couple other tribes this session, the Rocky Boy and Fort Belknap tribes. And it's been a very great opportunity to be able to help organize the tribes in the state to have a resonating voice, a unified voice. We're looking to the future to get more tribes involved, and just really appreciate this opportunity to speak on behalf of our efforts at the state legislature in terms of clean, renewable energy, bringing that to our homes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We're delighted you're here and glad you chose us over the retirement party.
Thank you. Yes. It looked like fun.
So we had set up a first kind of big picture question. In how are you helping to expand energy efficiency, or how are you seeing the landscape expand for energy efficiency and renewable energy development within, whether it's your own community or tribal communities in general? And what are some of the kind of current projects that you are working on that you want to share?
Well, primarily, the work that we do is community engagement and, in this term, civic engagement with the state legislature in terms of the tribes and better advocating for funding reaching their end line. And, to be honest, with the past two legislative sessions, and definitely with the federal funding that came through the Biden administration, there's been a real lack of access for the tribes to be able to attain that grant funding. Set aside from all the legislative efforts to try to block efforts to try to limit the access to wind generators or solar energy, that we're at an uphill battle to be able to attain some of this funding, and so we really have to be innovative in terms of how we access this funding, the partnerships that we create, or else my other background is broadband development and there's really a good opportunity to look at what other type of infrastructure developments are being done in the state, and definitely our tribal efforts, that tribes could start developing their own companies to be able to attain that funding directly rather than having to partner with a lot of these non-tribal energy folks in the state.
Gerald? I'm sorry, go ahead.
But also, the other work that I do, I'm executive director for People's Food Sovereignty Program, and that program, in terms of a more greener future, we provide localized foods to our participants. We also deliver wild game, deer and elk meat to our participants. There's a whole range of ways that we're cleaning up the way that our carbon footprints for the participants, but also the carbon footprint for our organization, trying to limit those carbon footprints, and then try to make it more accessible, food more accessible, so people aren't using their vehicles and other such things like that. That's a personal project that we do.
Gerald, thoughts on that
All
opening
right,
question?
I'm just going to take us back a little bit so we have a little bit of background on this. As tribal members and environmental program staff, we were initially given the responsibility to research and understand what's impacting our environment, the air, the land, the fowl, the fauna, and the animals. It was not until the second decade of the 21st century that climate change, which we were calling global warming all this time, was a concept that was given resources that tribes could access to understand that greenhouse gases caused by burning of fossil fuels and thus producing carbon emissions was impacting our environment to the point that some action needed to be taken. As we developed a climate change action plan for the Blackfeet Nation, to implement ways that we, at the grassroots level, could slow down this change that was already on a fast track to cause the harm to Mother Earth, but also implement actions that would allow us to adapt to this fast-changing environment. The need to use alternative energy and energy sources that are renewable and non-carbon producing was where our next goal was planted and needed to be nurtured and fertilized to have a positive impact for the next 7 generations. I began my start of my knowledge base that what the elders have been trying to teach us, not only us, but Western science paradigm, that over the overuse and mismanage of our fossil fuels and natural resources were putting the world out of balance, and we needed to reestablish that balance before we reach a point of global climate devastation. Fast forward to 2016, and Western science is now taking it seriously, understanding that the overuse of fossil fuels and the need to increase the research and education of better use of our energy and how increased reliance on renewable energy was the way of the future. I partnered up with the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, Crown of the Continent, the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, and another food sovereignty program that we have back on the res called Fast Blackfeet, to name a few organizations that are already at the forefront of battling climate change. When Biden administration took office, the restrictions on climate change and green energy were lifted, which allowed federal agencies and tribes access to the resources to bring clean and green energy options to the forefront and give the tribes access to developing green energy alternatives. This information, once piloted on a few communities, would be shared across rural, tribal, and non-tribal lands within the state of Montana and surrounding states. We applied for resources to educate and give opportunity to, and was given opportunity to purchase energy-smart appliances, weatherization of homes, efficient wood-burning stoves, teaching, and the ability to harness energy from the sun, wind to power homes, the use of building materials to keep homes warm in the winter and cool in the summer, and to emulate the wildlife in which storage and use of water. We have a project called the Sistucky Project, which is the beaver project, and knowing that beavers are very, very efficient at the storage of waters. And so, in emulating them, where we're seeing the impacts of climate change and the water flowing through and drying up faster and faster every year, the use of these beaver mimicry projects are allowing storage of water to bring back water tables, flora, fauna, and thus bring back that natural balance. Where was we at? Use of water. Current projects that are on the drawing board are building of solar microgrids, installation of solar on 117 homes, installation of electric vehicle charging station, mobile solar generators, applying for electric buses and heavy equipment, developing of a comprehensive climate, not developing, but the development that we have already is a comprehensive climate action plan, and setting up a reservation-wide recycling program. And that was just, some of the different areas that we're into now with the opportunities that was afforded us in this last administration, and knowing that that was or had a finite bill on it, and that you need to get in and do what you can while you have it. And as we see in this new administration, a lot of them programs have been cut and are being cut. So we really need, at this time, again, as in the last time we were in this administration, is the way we're going to get through this is to band together, is to support each other, and to stay vocal and not go silent, because this is the only world we got, the only Mother Earth we have, and we need to take care of it.
Before we move on to our next question, I wanted to open it to the audience on the, whether there are any questions for Gerald and Patrick, or examples of projects that are in your communities where you're collaborating with tribal organizations.
I'm fascinated by the Sistucky project and would love to hear more about how your beaver mimicry.
Yes, that seems to get people. I was going with, I gave a talk back in St. Paul, Minneapolis, in which we were talking about the different climate programs you had. And I said, my motto is not a chicken in every pot, but a beaver in every backyard. And so the lady said, well, I want one of them beavers. I said, we got more than enough where we're at. We'll ship you some. But yeah, it was to look at and to, as we tend to fall back on TEK, tribal ecological knowledge base, and where we were observant of how we interacted with our natural environment, and to see how well and what they were doing, and in terms of storage. And because in our upper reaches of our watersheds, the runoff is happening sooner. We're not getting that great snowpack that we used to get, and thus we need to store, the water as efficiently as we can. And we had 2 projects on the lower reaches. One is on some property that the Blackfeet Tribal Community College had, and a little bit further east in one of the wetland glen areas. And what we had seen is that immediately after they were put in, the water table started to rise. The vegetation and riparian areas started to regenerate. There was more use by the wildlife in them areas. And I said, well, we need to take that further up in the watershed so that we can do it that way. And maybe then not only will they be able to use it, but maybe there's enough for some home gardening, vegetation growing, and, you know, it's good for the land. It's good for us to get back in that balance area. And we'll be getting our climate change website back up here. I'm hoping by the end of the month. It's blackfeetclimatechange.com. And that the Beaver Project was one of the offshoots of the climate adaptation plan, of where we were able to take it and do some implementation of that with the help of the CLLC and some other outside agencies that worked with us. Yeah, we have.
Good morning. Patrick, we have people from other states here and taken a different tact in terms of your experience in the legislature and the politic of what Gerald and you have been talking about. And if you would, just a minute or two about the Native American Legislative Caucus that we have in this state and how you interact with that and how they can advance particular tribal goals.
So the past 3 legislative sessions has been a great opportunity for our tribes to be able to work with the foundation, which is the Indian Caucus. The Indian Caucus, you know, has been around for about 30, 40, 35 years and has been a real example of how, as Native tribes become more educated and understanding of this non-Indian governmental process, that we can point to legislators, you know, that look like us, talk like us, and are from our homelands, and understand our real needs back home. And having now 13 state legislators, both House and Senate, we really have a good opportunity to have influences on both sides of the houses. And when we have our representatives from the Blackfeet or the CSKT area, you know, they're bringing a lot of progressive activities or efforts that they're doing in their homelands, and have been a real great example for the state to recognize those efforts, but also other tribes to see what other tribes in the state are doing. And in terms of our, in terms of like conservation efforts or, conserving our landscapes or our wildlife, we look to a lot of these collaborations that are already set up between like the Blackfeet tribe and the U.S. government, Department of Interior, State Fish, Wildlife and Parks, that these partnerships exist, and those are things that we need to protect. And usually that's what my interaction with the caucus is we're identifying harmful legislation that's coming through the pipeline, being able to be ahead of that before before committee hearings, so that we can essentially kill it before it gets to the floor. But also we're advocating for a lot of the progressive activities again that we're doing on the reservation, such as the Blackfeet tribe and a lot of their renewable wind energy solar projects, like the solar project in Heart Butte, for example, how they're generating enough power that they're distributing that power to offset a lot of the it's done through a lottery, but households in the Heart Butte community will get a price cut on their energy costs. And so, we're trying to always highlight those types of activities and also utilize those legislators that are coming from those homelands, utilizing the caucus so that we can bring all the tribes to the table, essentially. But again, I guess, with Red Medicine and our interaction with them, I think it's more unique than a lot of these nonprofits that are working, at the state legislature to advocate on the behalf of quote unquote Indian country. We're actually like a government to government relationship. We're there, 5 days a week, 6 days sometimes a week, and 9 to 9 o'clock sometimes, and it's much more effective that way, I think, when you have the tribes officially there in person, working alongside the state or the Indian caucus.
And to add to that, that ability for us to use our tribal state legislators down in Helena, where they're able to draw back on some of the expertise back on the reservation and bring them forward to share their ideals. And when I get the opportunity, I like to say is that, the problem's out there. And don't ignore us, because we would like to be a part of that solution. And the way for us to be a part of that solution is for us to be at the table and to sit side by side and let's talk through it.
One last question for this round? Yeah, Brad?
Can you talk a little bit about what it's like working with your utility and maybe the Public Service Commission to achieve your renewable energy goals? Are they in alignment? Are they not in alignment? And what are your strategies for kind of advancing your goals if they're not in alignment?
The utility public board or whatever was something that was started when I first came on 33 years ago. And it never really got the momentum as you would think a public or community board was. It was just kind of, when I got there as the environmental director, after about 6 months, they said, Gerald, you're going to take over the utilities. You're going to run the drinking water, wastewater, solid waste. You're going to pay the city of Cut Bank for water and natural gas down on the eastern end of the reservation. I was going, oh, whoa, yeah, okay. But that interaction that we have since the tribe has now taken over all aspects there is to establish that relationship with Glacier Electric and the natural gas company now, and saying we're looking to break through that barrier now and start producing more clean, green energy, whether it's solar or wind powered. And, we do have a kind of a pilot project that he was talking about out in Heartbutte, the community where I live at. And so it's to take them type of examples and grow them and show them and to see that it works. And one of the issues there is if we're able to produce it, we need a market to sell it to. And right now, our energy, the major electric board there, is into more of a supply. We sell it, we don't buy it in terms. In order for us to get our energy to a market, really would be to go north into another country that our president wants to call our 51st state, or over the mountain divide here, and to get it into Bonneville Power's grid. And so that's where we're looking at, trying to develop and really get the energy that we can produce marketable.
Just to touch on it again, I did make a statement, that just like Gerald said, tribes are having to partner with these companies, and it's really just a learning curve for each tribe. Each tribe is all over, in terms of their progressiveness, and it really starts with the ability to, their self-determination and sovereignty, and say that, instead of being dependent on these energy companies or these local, regional energy companies that maybe, hey, let's start our own company. And, CSKT fortunately was able to acquire, their hydroelectric dam. And so now, they operate Mission Valley Power, which is, unique in the state and unique in the country per se, and that's where, we want to educate the tribes and get them to understand that if it's, green energy, wind energy, whatever type of green energy that that they think that, that is a possibility, that it's attainable, that there's processes to set up those types of entities to be able to go and receive the funding. Chippewa Cree Tribe is working in a 14-tribe coalition that is attaining funding and distributing that through energy development, but also energy cost savings and things like that.
In that 14-tribe consortium, the Blackfeet is also a member of that, and we're working with what they call indigenized energy, who got the big Solar for All grant, and the 14 tribes banded together, and we're working now and putting forth our solar projects, which are being funded. And I'm glad to say that we have, I think, 4 tribes in Montana that are getting that type of money. So along with that development of our green energy, and also with trying to come through with some innovative recycling strategies that we'll be able to share not only with our tribe, but take our, as we say, our show on the road, head down the High Line, hit Fort Belknap, bring in Rocky Boy, of course, Salish and Kootenai's right over the, we call it the hill, and to share on what we have, because to get into that type of work, it's expensive. And it's not something that you're going to use 24/7, because once you've handled and got your situation under control, go ahead and take that and pass it along and share it with the other tribes. And like I said, that's how we'll get through this, is to work together.
Right, that's a great setup for this next question, which is talk a little bit more about those challenges. I mean, you've mentioned a couple already. Even if there is funding, accessing it is a challenge. Now we're facing a situation where funding could be going away for some projects. And then how do we collaborate more effectively and break out of our silos, whether it's intertribal, whether it's tribal government, utility, community, how do we do more partnerships? And then what other challenges are you seeing in your work on clean energy?
Okay, so, to start with, each tribe is different. Tribal councils are changing every 2 years. There's a tribal election every 2 years, so having to re-educate each tribal council is something that, in terms of our company, Red Medicine, that's, what we take pride in doing, is approaching them regularly. But also, having the self-determination within, somebody in the tribe that says that we need to do this now, and we need to get this going. We should have done it yesterday. But when it comes to our non-tribal engagement, living in a Republican state, you may have federal funding that's coming down the pipeline, but is your governor going to adequately administer that funding and distribute it to the right recipients? And we see it all the time. That you'll see Northwestern get a good chunk of that funding first before any of these co-ops, these local co-ops, or any of these localized efforts to tribes. And so we always have to stay ahead of the game in terms of making sure the governor knows that this funding is needed for our communities. But then in my experience with the state legislature, you have individuals who are, should retire by now, and who are protecting coal energy and fossil fuel energy resources, and are dead set on keeping a stick in the wheel in terms of Montana and progressing forward. But this legislature, fortunately, we were able to kill a lot of those bills. Just getting into collaboration, we were able to work with a lot of younger Republicans this legislative session who are interested in, the financial benefit of green energy going forward. Not only, they have children now today and are realizing the effects of climate change, but also see the economic benefit of, renewable and green energies. And so, very fortunate to be able to work with those individuals. And, it's really, focusing on killing the idea that green energy is a boogeyman. I think, as we go forward and more younger people are getting involved, that's, what we're always advocating for is that, younger people are stepping up to the plate and registering to run for office, that we'll get more of a understanding that, that this is the pathway forward and we need to put the rest to bed.
And working with the legislature is very important. Just because I think I got a little more history there. I was part of Governor Bullock's climate change initiative. We had already had our document developed and just getting published, and he had invited me down to be part of this. It must have been about 25 people committee to start working on the plan for the state of Montana. And when you can work with the legislator and our tribal governor, I'm not tribal, but state governors on that level, and they're giving you a seat at the table, that's the time to take that up and meet that challenge head on so that we can work together, And this time we got out in front of the ball faster than the state had, and they were looking at a document that we had developed so that we could go ahead and get the one developed for the state of Montana. Some of the main challenges that we're seeing are the needed resources, the cost of infrastructure, like the governor had, or the mayor has said. Infrastructure, how are we going to get that infrastructure so it's serving everybody? And infrastructure development is costly. Infrastructure that's already there tends to ease that financial burden, but it's that development of infrastructure. Training a workforce that can install and maintain renewable energy infrastructure, a political administration that does not acknowledge the fact that there is a problem with old school harvesting of fossil fuels and natural resources is a challenge. The lack of electrical grid to transport the produced green energy to the markets that will buy the energy, the great distances between the communities, not only on the reservation, but in Montana in general. If you're not in the Missoula, Kalispell, Great Falls, Billings area, we're distances apart, Where I live in Heartbutte, to go to the community of Babb is almost 100 miles. So, and to service that big of an area, it becomes a challenge. So, along with that, and then the education and challenges that need to take place in our educational system to expose and inspire the next generation to take efficient energy use and production to the next level. We're talking about some issues, some problems that are facing us. And as much as we like to say we are grown-ups, we are adults, we are experienced, we haven't solved them problems like they need to be solved. I believe that we need to challenge our younger people. They have the solution. It just needs to be challenged and unlocked out of that mind so it can come to the forefront and take us to the next level. Thank you.
I do want to say, though, we don't have to wait for our children.
Yeah, no, go.
Yeah, no. The Blackfeet tribe has done a lot of proactive things, and this is not energy again. I don't want to bring up, but the Blackfeet tribe has attained their broadband system for the reservation, and they've been developing to the end line, and so they have now the experience of what it takes to build that type of infrastructure to the household, to the schools, to the municipalities on the reservation. So, to branch off of that activity, this is the next activity I think that the Blackfeet has, a good opportunity, a good shot at attaining.
Yeah, yeah. Turn it back now. I agree, unlocking our youth and the next generation to take this movement and go. That's where I'm at, for sure. Other questions on challenges that you've seen in your communities? Things that resonated from what Gerald and Patrick had to say? Questions?
Hi, thank you. My name is Andrew with Resilient Renewables. The question was about challenges for development for green energy. One of the things I didn't hear you talk about is NIMBY, right? The not in my backyard. Whether we're talking about solar or wind, energy storage for that matter, from like a battery perspective, all the projects I've been involved with, like, runs up against that in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're talking about billionaire ranchers or you're talking about, just community who doesn't want solar panels that close to their house or something like that. How has that played into either projects that you're considering or the way that you engage with your communities in talking about future projects?
Right now, at the cost bearing the load there, we don't have that luxury of putting solar on every home. So right now, it will probably be people coming forward to say, yes, I want solar in my backyard. And it is always a choice. We're not here to force this on anybody. But that is, again, one of the challenges is to educate. Maybe they don't want it there because they don't truly understand it. And you talked about the battery part. Well, if we're going to get into this, we better start thinking about how are we going to deal with batteries once they have in their life use is another thing. That's why we're also looking at, is electrical vehicles a godsend, or is it, something that's going to come back to haunt us? One on the mining of lithium, and the other side is how do we deal with the dead lithium batteries? So it's like, let's not be the ones that sit up there and say, we don't care, we're going to make our billions, and then we'll pay $1 million in fines later on down the line. We need to get this out in the forefront before we even get there.
I'd say for most of the reservations in the state, we don't have the issue of non-Indians declaring that they don't want this in their backyard, except for CSKT, which is 20% of the population, the native population there. And so that reservation is unique to any other reservation. So there is ordinances that are in their constitution, tribal constitution, that ensures that they're working side by side with the county, and so they have some. They respect, the advocacy of the non-Indians on the reservation. So you're not going to see that really on any other reservations. But at the state legislature, you have attempts at limiting the height of wind turbines, or where you can put those in accordance of your neighbors and things like that. But those are just attempts at trying to limit our access and limit our ability to expand it. But I'm pretty sure we're able to kill those. But yeah, we were.
Hi there. I'm wondering if, from your perspectives, and you guys are involved with many tribal nations and communities, so, but I was wondering if you could speak to if energy burdens or the cost of energy, if it feels like it's going up for households in general, if that's something that you're observing, if folks are talking about it, and if so, do you feel that the utilities, either the co-ops or if it's Northwestern or the IOUs, are they responding? Are they engaging at all with any sorts of low-income assistance or disconnection kind of moratoriums, anything like that?
There is, well, with the one that we deal with mostly is Glacier Electric. And we do have a low energy program on the rest, but I think I heard last week that was falling under the blade of the new administration. Let's cut our most vulnerable, our most needy part of the population to save a few cents on the other end. But I feel that co-ops and utility companies could be doing a lot more to bring the education to the people. It would be like if we were able to come in and just a simple fix, put in the LED bulbs in your house. This is what it ran last month. This is what it is this month. Okay, we're going to add another energy saving, and show them that savings. But where we're going to look at the majority of that savings that's really going to impact the book is during the winter months when you are trying to keep yourself warm, whether it's with propane, natural gas, and especially electric, And so that's where we need to concentrate the efforts on savings to show them that, because, yeah, we can change our lights and maybe save us 15, 20 cents a month. They're not seeing that as really impacting their lives. But when you talk about that utility heating bill going up another $100 a month, yes, that's cutting in somewhere.
I live on the Flathead Reservation, so we get our power from Mission Valley Power, and unfortunately, a lot of the tribal members or the tribal households on the reservation do depend on LEAP to cut those costs, and so they're gonna see their costs increase. We would like to see the Mission Valley Power utilize some of that energy that's created from the dam to offset some of the costs for the tribe, and with LEAP being cut, hopefully that's something that they have that's on their radar. We're hoping that. But I think probably the biggest issue that lies on our reservation is the lack of home ownership to be able to access a lot of these programs, such as putting solar panel on your home, or a lot of these farmers are using solar panel to operate their farms and ranches, and then selling their energy to their neighbors. Those are things that only could happen whenever you have home ownership or own that land. And we just don't have that access. A lot of our tribal members are living in poverty and live in low-income housing development projects, and so those all have to be done through collaborations, with our housing authorities, the tribes, and then those local energy companies who, if it's a priority to them or not, want to work on green energy projects, and we'll have to, and that's another thing I think too is like to say is that there's a long-lasting history of these non-native companies, state agencies not consulting with the tribes, leaving the tribes out in the dark on any development within their reservation. So, that's something that, we've always are advocating for, is that, there needs to be much more transparent and regular conversations that are happening with the tribes and these entities.
Kyla, you had a question?
Then we'll move to 3.
Hi there. I'm Kyla Mackey with the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. Just had a question, I think, following directly on what you were just mentioning with, there's not a lot of transparency, or working with the state has been a challenge in some ways, but are there specific thoughts on how the state could maybe better partner with the tribes on either projects or kind of funding opportunities or workforce training opportunities that you would recommend? Are there some good examples where the state has been a partner on those and what's worked well, or just thoughts on what could improve?
Gerald, do you have any ideas?
Okay. Yeah. I think, that we need to get out of our silos, so to speak. And personally, I've had this ongoing relationship with MDEQ just on the solid waste issues that I've been dealing with for 30 years. And so coming down to Helena and going over to DEQ is just no stranger to me. At that level, we are all trying to accomplish the same goal. It's when we start getting into that political realm, which is a pay grade above myself and the people I work with at MDEQ, that happens. I have been able to go in and meet with the directors of MDEQ and saying, you know, how can we collaborate? How can we work together? What projects do you have that we can do that? And I think a better thing would be, hey, let's have a showcase day and invite tribes down, environmental directors or whoever, in to see what you're doing and how we can work together on that level. And you know, it may work and it may not. There may be some things that we can collaborate on and other things that we won't. But at least give that exposure out there and saying that, yeah, we welcome, and it's not this barrier, us against them. It's more, you know, the royal we, that'll make things work.
I guess, you know, in a general statement, I would say, you know, our environment starts from the soil up. And so, you know, there's a lot of soil health projects that tribes are doing, trying to bring back their soil from ranching projects in the past due to allotment. But also, there's a project, a nuclear power plant project out of Colstrip, that tribes are trying to ask the state to collaborate with to not develop. And I think, you know, those types of advocacies from the tribes are, when they're approaching any type of environmental quality issues or projects that we're having to play defense mostly. You can even think of like oil pipelines and things like that. We're having to be our loudest whenever those projects are being presented. And like Gerald said, we'd rather work together rather than our silos and try to find projects that we can work with. And what I see is start with soil, work on wind, water, and you know, any energy after that.
Kyla, that was a perfect setup for our next question, which is, you know, taking from that other lessons learned and other, you know, things that you recommend for changes on the regulatory, the policy side, engaging with government. Thoughts for other things we should have on our list?
In going through, as mentioned earlier, tribal challenges are very resource dependent, you know, and the ability for us to access them resources to get in and make the changes, the ability to get out and network is a lesson learned. In the beginning, when you're just starting, you're just kind of in your shell, in the shelf, in your silo. You know, you're that deep in when you're first starting. But as you grow and you learn, and if you have that ability to get out and really speak, no question's the wrong question, you tend to learn, and then you tend to get them networks out there, and they start working. And when you are working hard, it's like the adage of the Great Spirit helps those who help themselves, you know. So when they see you out there, you know, and you're doing it, you're networking, you know, they might talk to somebody, say, hey, I can help with that. You know, it may not be you directly, but then you're able to hook up the two together. So that resource need, and by communicating, you know, can help solve some of them problems. Most tribes are operating at or below poverty level, and it's hard to find the needed resources to invest strong alternative green energy source and production. I feel that this isn't just a tribal issue, but for rural Montana and America across the nation. One of the things that has really worked well is the partnerships and collaboration with other tribes, nonprofits, such as the Sierra Club, Center for Large Landscape Conservation, and MDEQ and other state programs, where we're able to see eye to eye and know that the work we're doing works well. What works for us is good for those on as well as off the reservation, our aquatics land, our aquatics invasive species program that got started back in 2015 has grown, and we're kind of on that forefront on the eastern side to stop them boats from bringing in invasive species. That was a collaboration with the Flathead Valley Conservancy Club. I can't remember which one it was, but it's that type of work. And I've collaborated, a lesson we'll learn was with the Salish and Kootenai, Mike Dergalo. I've known all the environmental directors since I've started over in Flathead, and we've developed a real good relationship and play off of each other's strong points and stuff. So that networking is such a real essential need there. And tribes may want to consider continuing to develop and expand their own environmental regulations. Somebody had talked about the regulations that we have to know ahead of time, that we need to have these regulations in place so that we can better control what may be produced that may end up harming our own environment. So
we were advocating for a policy change that would ensure that there was one tribal liaison in each of the state agencies. That unfortunately didn't go through. And what we're always trying to present is a guideline for our state agencies to utilize when they're engaging in consulting with tribes. I think it all starts there with the way that the federal funding has come down and our experience in terms of how these regional rural companies operate is they like to keep tribes in the dark, and unfortunately, we're trying to fight to be at the table in terms of planning and development and construction. So we need policies that ensure that type of participation and consultation. But also, whenever these projects do occur or implemented on our lands, there's a lot of land issues, our fee to federal land designations. A lot of these non-Indian companies like to cut corners, and so when they're operating on their state fee lands, they use those right of ways. But once they hit tribal lands, they'll stop development. And so we need to ensure that when these developments are occurring within our reservations, that they're getting to the end line. And then also with investment, that we're creating these policies that ensure that tribes are at the table when these grants are being written and the grants are being awarded, that they have equal opportunity to those grants. And so, again, this is all learning curve for our tribes, and then being more prepared and being more ready for when these funding channels occur, and then being at the table, ensuring that we're at the table through the whole process. That's what we need.
oh no, I'm good. Yeah.
I wanted to, before we open it again, one last question. There are a number of clean energy advocates in the room, different community-based organizations, companies. How can we partner with you more effectively? Are there ways that we can be stronger allies?
Yeah, yes, you can. Stronger allies. Where's the money? No, no, it's not just about the bucks, but I mean, to recognize that as tribal indigenous people, that we are here, we have important say, we have ideals and solutions that we can bring to the forefront. We, like I said, that because we're living at or below a majority of a poverty level, yes, it is very resource dependent. But Don't let that hold you back or scare you away. We don't want to go there. We want to talk with them. There is a lot to be said. There's a lot of intelligent people where we live at. We have survived 500 years of adaptation. We are the poster children there, and we will keep on keeping on. Now, if you guys have access, technical assistance, equipment, resources, however, come hither, come forth, and let's share. Let's share the knowledge. Let's share the wealth, and let's work together. And because clean energy, green energy, renewable energy is still kind of at the forefront of what we're dealing with. We're just trying to empty the garbage and pay the bills, believe it or not. And to say that I have enough time left over to get in and start worrying about green energy and how we're going to produce that, we have a lot more struggles going on where we're residing at. But that doesn't mean that, there's not those of us out there that have taken the leadership pole and say, I am here, I am willing to commit my time and my energy and my knowledge and my experience to work with you guys.
Yeah, I think Gerald, pretty much laid it down as just partnerships and collaborations. That's I think, we created Red Medicine for the ability for non-Indian organizations or companies to approach tribes. So we're a resource, we're a catalyst for that. And so if you have any projects or anything like that you need assistance in approaching tribes, that's what we offer, those services we offer. But again, this is gonna have to come with an understanding of collaboration and an understanding that these systems need development, that they need to reach the home, they need to reach every business and hospital. That's gonna be an education that we have to do to the tribes. But I think, going forward, I think there's a really good opportunity in the state to really show what that type of tribal, non-tribal collaboration can look like. And we have that opportunity here.
We have time for one last question. If there's one last question.
Wowed them.
All right. Well, we heard a lot. Oh,
I
sorry,
don't
Ann,
have
go
a
ahead.
question.
Ann
I just
does.
want to say thank you to especially Patrick for being such a strong presence. I don't think we've had such a strong presence of the tribal community in our legislative process, and it's made a huge difference. So thank you for everything you did this session. I don't know, you must have cloned yourself because you were everywhere all at once. So I just want to say thank you. I think the American Indian Caucus was the strongest I've ever seen it. And I think that a lot of that is due to a lot of your work, so thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you, Patrick, Gerald, for your guidance, for your insights. We heard a lot about the need for partnership, the need for collaboration, education, building, and education on the economic benefits of clean energy, of how communities can see value from new projects, and that access to funding is challenging, but super important and makes it easier when we have collaboration. So I appreciate your guidance, your insights. Any last words before we wrap up?
I had one last thought that you brought that up, and Jill touched on it, is like if money is something that's limiting, if you bring the idea, tribes have made a lot of friends over the since time immemorial, and there's a lot of people that are in our corner. They just need the right projects.
Right. Please join me in thanking Gerald and Patrick for their time.